Yeah. Good morning, good morning. This is Tony Genovese, host of California Kaleidoscope. We're in doing another show for you folks out there. It's a very rainy Halloween weekend, and we have a national election coming up, so I decided to bring in my little Spirit of USA ghost here to share the set with me. Tonight's show is rather different. I'm going to be highlighting two festivals, one of them in Oxnard, which is the Oxnard Salsa Festival that I've attended. And it's salsa that you eat and also salsa music. So if you're a dancer out there, it's a great place to go. And if you love salsa like I do, it's a great place to sample all types of salsa. And then in the second half of the show, I'm going to share with you an open house at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that I've called the Rocket Festival, that happens in the spring. And the Salsa Festival actually happens in the fall. I attended both festivals and took some still photographs experiencing it, and we're going to share those two festivals with you, with me filling in the gaps of what I can recall after attending both festivals. So they really don't have much to do with each other, but they were two great festivals that I had been wanting to put into a show for a long time, so I decided to just combine them both. So the first one is going to be from the lovely town of Oxnard, which has a lot of wonderful public festivals, and then the second one is Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is Pasadena, or actually Altadena area. So if everybody's ready down in the director's booth, if we could go to the Salsa Festival, and I'll narrate it for you, and we'll cover that, and then come back out to introduce the second roll-in. So this is the Salsa Festival. Now, this is yours truly outside the tasting tent. They have this really huge tent, and there you can see it. I think it's like $5 for something like 25 tastes. They give you chips, and once you get inside the tent, you go to the different booths and taste their samples, and some of it is award-winning. You can see one of the booths won many awards over the years. This festival's been going on quite a few years, and there's all kinds of salsa. There's cooked ingredient salsa. There's more raw ingredient salsa. Then there's salsa from different Latin American countries and different amounts of heat. So if you're a real heat lover, they have some extremely hot salsas. Matter of fact, there's a salsa that they will bet you cannot eat. And if you eat it, I think you get a prize from that particular booth. So the stuff is everything from mild to extremely hot. I sort of like the mild stuff, not too much into the heat. And then outside of it, they have all their booths with the food vendors and the crafts people, and then there's a few stages and a picnic area. And this is in downtown Oxnard, one of their oldest parks. So you can see all kinds of wares and fun things to do for the kids during the festival. And it pretty much takes the whole day, especially if you sit down and enjoy some of the music. That's a pagoda that's in the center of the park that goes back to the teens, because of the Oxnard area is a rather older community and has a lot of different ethnic groups represented there. And as you can see, there's musical instrument sellers, and there's CD from bands and all that sort of musical element, along with the food from many different countries. This was the bandstand. They had a terrifically large bandstand this year. Each year they get more and more great sponsors, and they're able to build on that. And they had a great salsa band, and people are dancing in front of the bandstand. I think they actually have a salsa contest. Here's another view of the pagoda in the center of the park, and looking towards the crafts booths in the area for the picnickers. And it's just a wonderful day. The weather up there usually in Oxnard is wonderful and breezy, and where the valley is usually that time of year is a little bit warm. They also have a large monument to all the veterans that are community members of the different wars that the United States has fought in. And this gives you a little idea of the crafts and vendors that are there. Of course, a lot of the local businesses are represented there. So you can really enjoy yourself participating and seeing what people make, and if you want to take it home for upcoming Christmas gifts, because this festival is in the fall, so it's a good place to do your Christmas shopping or holiday shopping, I should say. And of course, if you want to get your fortunes told, they have a few ladies that will do that for you. So it's very colorful. People put a lot of work into this, and it's a great turnout. There's several thousand people that show up for this sort of thing. And it's all different nationalities. There's Latin American food, South American food. There was even a sprinkling of Hawaiian ices, because it usually turns out to be kind of a warm day when you go out there in the fall. And here's one of the local salsa folks that sell their salsas, and they also sell marinades and teriyaki sauces and that sort of stuff. So if you do any cooking, it's a lot of fun to pick up some of that stuff to add to your recipes at home. And usually, since it's a warm day, the hat gentleman is doing a brisk business selling hats. And there's a large children's area. This gentleman is selling cacti. He had a great example. So the local garden folks come in and bring in items to take home for your house plants and such. Here's something for the little girls in the crowd, princess dresses, which were just spectacular because everything in the booth was pink. So it has a lot of stuff for all ages. And this is a little wider shot of the downtown park, looking west from the downtown area, which has been renovated. They have a large area, a multiplex theater. Here's a couple of guys from the Knights of Columbus that are working the drink stand. It gets a brisk business. So there are a couple of the great guys, so we decided to get a quick snap of them. So here's a craft area for children that was in the children's area. So they have something for the kids to enjoy, build small projects and coloring, and they have storytellers and that kind of stuff. Of course, you've got to have the rock wall climbers. They have one of those there. And here's a couple of a brave couple here climbing the wall. So, and this is completely free. I don't know if I mentioned that. This is completely free and open to the public. And they make their money selling drinks and food and crafts and that sort of stuff. And charging for the salsa taste. So I don't know, there's not many places in Los Angeles or the Southern California area that you can take a family to and get in free and have a lot of fun, especially during these times of tight money matters for families and everyone in the public. This was their little, this is their logo, their little character here, this little red gentleman. So I decided to get a quick shot with him. So that was the Salsa Festival. I just can't recommend that that festival enough. It just has something for everybody. It's very well produced. It happens at a great time of the year, and the location there is wonderful. And the people in the booths are all great, and the people manning the tasting area are all wonderful. So, and it's not just your, chili salsa. There's guacamole involved there too, stuff with avocados. So you don't have to be afraid of tasting some of these items because of too much heat. If something has a lot of heat, they will tell you and warn you. One of the vendors, as a change, and I wasn't aware of this, they have very, very hot dill pickles. And that was another one of those situations where he was challenging people to try one of these dill pickles because the heat is like something else. So I don't know, I guess they're pickled with jalapenos or some of the more hotter varieties, but there was several servicemen that came over from the CB base that was there with buddies, and some of their buddies were egging them on, try the pickle, try the pickle. And it's a full-size, dill pickle. It's massive. So, and it was funny to watch them try to wolf these things down, and they start sweating, and they get very flushed, and it's almost an entertainment in itself to see some of these guys try to get these things down. But it's a great festival. Oxnard has many festivals up there. Salsa Festival is just one. They have a Tall Ships Festival up there. They have a beach festival. They have there's a Buddhist temple up there. They have a Japanese festival. It's wonderful. They have a Greek festival at one of the Greek Orthodox churches up there. It's a multi-ethnic area, so they have a lot of festivals that are enjoyable to go to, and you learn a little bit about the history and the people's background and that sort of stuff. And the food's great. So, that's Oxnard Salsa Festival. So, sort of change your mind now and get into a different sort of thinking. We're going to go into space. And this is Jet Propulsion Laboratory Open House Rocket Expo that I attended with a group of friends that are members of this local science fiction club called Deep Space 101. And we attended the JPL Open House Rocket Fest the year before, but this year, or the year we attended, I think it was 2003, we invited other science fiction clubs to join us, and we made a whole day out of it. We met for breakfast in the area up there, and then we went to JPL, and we went to their fest, and which, again, I just can't tell you how much fun it was. Again, it was totally free. JPL provides shuttle buses onto the JPL the JPL facilities. You can tour the whole facility, different stops, because it's a massive facility, and you actually get to see where your tax dollars are going. And when we were there, the majority of the interest was the Mars lander. They had just landed 2 landers on Mars, and they were starting to move around. And the landers are still on Mars exploring it, so they were quite a bit happy about that. And then they had other areas. So if the director's ready, and we'll roll into that, and there'll be a little space music underneath there, and I'll try to give you a little sampling of what it's like to go to the JPL open house, and that's in the spring. That's the logo of Deep Space 101. All different kinds of science fiction club, and this is our little event sign that we hang out whenever we're having a club meeting or a club function or a club field trip, like we were doing out to the Rocket Fest. And this is just some of our members when we stopped and had breakfast the morning before the festival, and then headed on to JPL in the Altadena, Pasadena. This is the main executive tower at JPL. Mostly offices. There's not too much scientific investigation going on there. Have wonderful grounds up in Altadena. Now this looks rather strange, but these are all mannequins, and it's set up to be a tribute to Dr. Goddard's first rocketry experiments that went on in Altadena many years ago, back in the teens, after the turn of the century. Of course, this is the logo for the Mars explorers that they were very proud of, and was a major part of the open house. This is a very good friend of mine that we're kind of dedicating this show to. This is Mark Schubert, who's a big buddy of mine and a very big science fiction fan. Actually worked for the Department of Energy. Here we are touring one of the exhibits of a spacecraft that's going to fly through the tail of one of the comets in our solar system. And Mark was a very big Vulcan Star Trek fan, and he had this great persona he used to bring to parties. This is Vulcan Mr. Skobek. And so he was quite a bit of a science fiction fan. Here's some more of our club members looking at one of the hard rocket boosters made by Marietta that was on exhibit in one of the buildings. And here's another orbiter with some Cub Scouts exhibit in one of the wings of the Jet Propulsion Lab. The Jet Propulsion Lab actually takes on several acres. Here's the spacecraft that's going to be flying through the tail of one of the comets to do a little research on what comets consist of and magnetic properties they have. And of course they have some of the telescopes set up. This telescope was set up for the sun, so you can actually see the dark spots on the sun. And a lot of our members took turns in taking a peek through the band's astronomy instrument. And this open house is many different places, many different buildings, so they have a shuttle bus that takes you to many different stops. And some of it is orbiters, some of it was the Mars spacecrafts, some of it is photographic research. This is John Wallace, a member of the club, who's in front of a giant photograph of the Mars surface that was taken by one of the rovers. So they're actually getting to see what Mars looks like. This is one of the Mars rovers that landed and is traveling Mars even in 2008, 3 years after it landed. They're still taking pictures and samples. Here's something for the kids. They had a miniature Mars rover, and the kids could lay down on the ground on the Mars rover to show how it'll crawl all over Mars, actually crawling all over the kids. Now this was an interesting area of 3D photographic research, where some of the cameras on the Orbitas actually are 3D, and they give you 3D lenses, and then there's high definition 3D plasma screens that will show you some of these 3D photographs. And it's really amazing how in 3D it just makes seeing the landscape of Mars jump into your face. Here's some of our members waiting for the shuttle to pick us up to take us to the next station. They had different stations along the way, and you really can't see the whole place in one day. Oh, this is another little fun thing. This is free also. People that want to could actually have their picture taken and inserted into a 3D photograph, and this 3D photograph is then emailed to you on the internet. This is another area on JPL where they take all the photographs and actually map make and turn them into maps. And these are some of our members, Mark and his mom, and staff member, and Matt. And here's another one of our club members looking through a stereoscopic still photograph that had been sent back from Mars many hundreds of thousands of years away. Here they give you one of the hard astronauts suits that you can climb in and have your picture taken. And this is a photograph that you can step into that's going to show you, in essence, what a Martian colony from Earth is going to look like in the next 15 years. They're planning on having people go to Mars. This is an actual astronaut who was telling us about the intricacies of the hard spacesuit, or the portable environment that you'll need on Mars, and how much it costs, and how many layers it is. Here again is another opportunity for people that attend the open house to play around and get into the spacesuit. Here's some more of our club members waiting in line for another exhibit. Most of the times we've gone to JPL, the lines are not too bad. The only exhibit that seems to have a lot of lines is getting into their mission control, and that could be almost an hour wait. And we'll have to do that next time. We haven't gotten into it yet. Here's another 3-stage solid rocket booster used to send spacecraft out into space for exploration. Here's another astronomy instrument that is set up for people to look through. I think this was another look at the sun. Here's John Wallace again, posing by the rope line to see some more of the Martian exploration spacecraft. And since that had just happened, it got a lot of attention. We only had to wait in line for about 20 minutes. It took us inside. They had some outside static displays, and then inside they had a mock-up of the lunar space landscape. This is a mock-up of a Gemini capsule back in the 70s, orbiting, a 2-man spacecraft that you can have your picture taken with. And this is the orbiter of Mars, how a mock-up, and that orbited Mars, and then parts of it landed on Mars and then opened up, and one of these small rovers, these little robotic rovers, came out. They put 2 rovers on Mars to explore Martian landscape twice as fast. and that's the mock-up. Now this is an interesting photograph. JPL is very interested in robotics, and this was an exhibit for one of the local high schools, and that's a robot that was picking up balls and putting them in that cage. So here high school students are learning how to make robots. Of course, outside they had this wonderful color photograph of Earth, and you got a chance to have a little fun with it. And this is me in my Atlas, mock-up of the Atlas with the world and his cares on his shoulder, going back to Greek mythology. And again, this is another logo from the club, our club, the Science Fiction Club, Deep Space 101. And we're located in the Southern California area, and we're looking for members. So if you're interested, contact me through the email in the end credits. And that was our little Martian fellow. That's another. He's kind of our pet mascot. So a little more background on that is again that's another totally free thing. And there's tons of giveaways. They give you a bag, and they have all kinds of scientific and informational materials and coloring books. I mean, it's great for people to get interested in NASA and the space program, and it's a great place for kids. A lot of the kids in our group actually did reports that they turned into their school for science extra credit. And of course, I'm an old aircraft and NASA guy. I followed the space program and the moon landing, and so I'm still trying to keep up on this stuff. And with the advent of computers, it's really going out there. So I can see we're at the end of another great show. I hope you enjoyed the two festivals I showed you. And just remember, this is California Kaleidoscope. I'm Tony Genovese, your host. And just remember, keep an eye for us here on your station, because outside in Southern California community, we'll be looking for you. So thanks very much, and thanks to the crew here in Van Nuys. Another great show. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Hi, good morning. This is Tony Genovese, California Kaleidoscope. A nice rainy Saturday, Halloween Halloween weekend. I brought my good friend Jim Sumstein. Thanks for coming in, Jim, with the rain and everything.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome for being here. Today we're doing a show featuring Jim and his demonstration of Mr. Comet. So without bloviating anymore, I think we'll go right to Mr. Comet. So the stage is yours, Jim.
Thank you very much. Today I'm going to be talking about comets, and specifically about comets in our own solar system. Now basically there are two kinds of comets. Short period comets, like Halley's Comet, for example, and long period comets like Comet Hale-Bopp. Those two are probably the most well-known comets that we know about recently. Specifically Halley's Comet, which has been known about for probably more than 500 years. Discovered by an English astronomer, Sir Edmund Halley. He was honored posthumously with the name of the comet, given his name, and that trend has continued to this time forward. But in this case, those names are attached to comets by the people who discovered them. Now, I want to clearly state here this morning that this is a scientific experiment. Some of the items that you will see later here on the table look like they're just ordinary household items, and it may look like some kind of recipe. But again, I want to emphasize this is a scientific experiment. Now, to begin with, we need to have something to put it in when we finish. So I have a baking pan here, and we'll put that right over there. And we have to have something to make it in, so I have what I call, conveniently, the pot. A very clever, well, maybe not so clever identification there. And inside the pot, we have the first ingredient, which I call dihydrous oxide, otherwise known as water. We'll put that right there. Now, I have another case here, which I call, cleverly, the ingredients. Let's see what we have in here. What is this? Generic cleanser. Well, let's give it a test, okay? Watch it. No, I don't think that quite does it. Let's see if there's something else in here. Ah, yes, the real thing. Ta-da! Now, I must say, these two items on the table have nothing to do with this experiment. They're simply an icebreaker. Okay, let's see what else we have in here. Ooh, this is the really nasty stuff. Ammonia. Nasty but necessary. And let's see what else we have here. Ah, yes. Terran soil, otherwise known as dirt. And what have we here? Ah, yes. Organic material, otherwise known as Diet Dr. Pepper. And let's see what other ingredients we have. A very large measuring cup. And, ah yes, a large wooden spoon. And a large metal spoon. And, let's see, what is this? A very well-used canvas bag that says Ventura County Fair volunteers are the greatest show on earth. I would agree with that. Okay. Oh, and some very thick gloves. Oh dear. And a very large rubber mallet. Okay. Let's begin to add the ingredients, and we'll start out with the dihydrous oxide. Now you'll notice here that we have a very nice, clean pot to start with. Now also you'll note that the measurements I make in this experiment are very precise. 2 cups of dihydrous oxide, water. And a smidgen of ammonia, which I'm told is slightly larger than a pinch. And there we are. And a similar amount of organic material. And 2 heaping tablespoons of terran soil. I cannot guarantee that there aren't any 6- or 8-legged creatures amongst this terran soil. However, if they go from here to there, I'm afraid they're not going to make it through this experiment. I'll be careful nevertheless. Okay, here we go. There's 1 heaping tablespoon and 2 heaping tablespoons of terran soil. And we stir. I don't know, there's just not a whole lot going on here. I don't know. I don't know, it looks bad. It smells pretty bad, too. It smells terrible, in fact. Let's see here. I may have forgotten an ingredient. Let me look around. Let's see here. Ah, what is this? Comet. It says it's got the right name on there. Let's see. I don't know. I don't think that's going to work. Let me look some more. What's this? Oh dear, another one. Again, it's got the right name, but I don't know. There must be another ingredient around here somewhere. Let's see. Oh, what is this? Huh. It says secret stuff. And what else does it say? Absolutely no peeking. Don't even think about it. Well, Mr. Comet is allowed to look. So let's see what we have in here.
Something happened there.
What have we in here? Well, I think it's time for the gloves. Well, where did you come from? Well, here's where the science comes in. Part 1. I think we all know that there are how many states of matter? 3. Solid, liquid, and gas. Now, I think ice is a perfect example of that. Here we have it in liquid form. If we were to put this in a saucepan and put it on the stove and turn on the fire, pretty soon we'd have bubbles coming up out of that liquid, and the bubbles popping out of the pan and all this vapor escaping into the air would form steam. That's number 2. And then if we were to put this in one of those trays, you know, that has all the spaces in it, a tray, and we put it in the freezer for a while after we filled it up with that, after a while we'd have ice cubes. So that's 3. So we've got ice cubes, we've got the liquid water, and we've got steam. So this one passes the test of the 3 states of matter. Let's put this to that test. Okay. Obviously, it has weight, it has heft, and it is solid. Let's see. I see gas escaping from it, so that's the second part. Now, let's see if it passes the third part of the test. No, I don't see it dripping in the pot here, so let me give it a little help. Let's see. No? Well, let me give it the squeeze test. Here we go. Well, it doesn't pass the test. So how could something that is solid change into a gas without melting into a liquid? There must be a name for that. Evaporation. No, that's changing from a liquid to a gas. Condensation. No, that's changing from a gas to a liquid. Well, I have a new word for you. When something changes from a solid to a gas without melting into a liquid, it's called sublimation. Now you can impress all your friends and your family and your neighbors and say that today when Mr. Comet was doing his show, I learned a new word. Sublimation. Changing from a solid to a gas without melting into a liquid. Now, here's part 2 of the science. There are things that are very hot that can burn. And there are things such as being in the sun too long. And there are things also that are very cold that can burn. I know because when I started doing this show about 15 years ago, I was wearing some of those, you know, those cloth gloves with the metal bumps on them. Well, that wasn't such a good idea because I ended up actually with severe burns on my fingertips and on the palms of my hands. They actually, it was so cold that it actually removed the top layer of skin off my fingers and hands, palms anyway, and I never wore those gloves again. These are actually oil field workers' gloves. Now, we're going to talk about temperature, things being hot and being cold. The late Johnny Carson, who was the host of The Tonight Show for many, many years, used to play games with the audience. And one game in particular I really liked. I'm going to try that on you now. This is really cold.
How cold is it?
Ah, I'm glad you asked me that question. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't know anything about Kelvin and centigrade and Celsius. And besides that, on a bright sunny day, I can't imagine it being only 25 degrees. Something not quite right about that. So I'm going to speak in Fahrenheit. So in Fahrenheit, 109 degrees below zero. That is very, very cold. Okay, now it's time to add this ingredient to the pot. So I'm going to use this canvas bag right now. And in order to make this a bit more manageable, I'm going to use the rubber mallet to break this up. Now I'm facing this away from you because it could splash out a little bit. Okay, I think it's ready. Now, again, using the measuring cup, we're going to provide exact measurements of this ingredient for the pot. Two cups of the secret stuff right in the pot. Okay.
Wow.
Now we use the wooden spoon again, and we stir once again. Mad scientist at work. And it's making great sounds. Snap, crackle, pop. Okay, we'll bring the tray over. And I have to tell you that every time I've done this experiment, I get a different result. Whether it's hot or cold, inside or outside, calm or windy. I think it needs a little persuasion. But it's almost ready. The Comet. There you are. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed the show.
Well, that's great, Jim. Let me get up here and join you. Thank you for doing that. It does look a little bit like a comet, doesn't it? It's kind of icy and dirty and fizzes and...
Well, you know, there are two opinions among scientists. Some say that comets are dirty snowballs, and other scientists say that they're snowy dirt balls.
Isn't that
I'll leave it. Not exactly. Some comets have more water ice on them than others.
Oh, that's what they must be.
Now, I should mention here that this is a representation of a comet because several spacecraft have flown by comets recently, and they have instruments on board their spacecraft that are able to detect the ingredients in a comet, in the nucleus of a comet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been able to get that data back from the spacecraft traveling in space?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The Giotto spacecraft that was launched by the Italian Space Agency in 1985 flew by Halley's Comet, and in fact it flew right through the tail of Halley's Comet as it made its closest approach to the Earth in like 76 years. It sent back that data to Earth, and they determined that the items that you see here on the front of the table represent the ingredients in Halley's Comet.
So this pushes forward our knowledge of comets and of the solar system.
Absolutely.
All together.
Absolutely. And in fact, just a couple of years ago, a spacecraft actually landed on the surface of a comet.
Oh, really? I didn't hear anything about it.
Yes.
Do you know anything more about that?
I'm trying to remember the name of the spacecraft and the name of the comet. I believe it was a Japanese spacecraft that landed on the comet.
It was a comet visiting our solar system?
Yes. Yes, and
interesting.
returned some spectacular images back to Earth.
Wow.
In fact, not only that, but it sent part of the probe to the surface of the comet and impacted on the comet so that we could see what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Does this space exploration does it get a lot of press? Because I tend to keep an eye on these things, but maybe I'm not the best researcher on the internet. Does a lot of this get out to folks, or is it more of a situation where if you're a hobbyist, you know more about it?
I think there's more and more now. It used to be just, for many, many years it was just the United States and the Soviet Union who were launching spacecraft. But recently, a number of countries, including China and India, have also launched spacecraft. In fact, the Chinese recently are saying that they want to send a crew of 3 men or 3 people to the moon.
Oh, I hadn't heard that either.
Yes, yes. There is a lot of attention in the media about going back to the moon. The United States actually has a new project called Constellation that will be sending a spacecraft back to the moon by the year 2020.
I see. Now, is there any comets that we should be on the lookout for in the upcoming years that we can keep our eyes open for?
That is a very difficult question. Of course, Halley's Comet comes around every 76 years.
Oh.
The last time it was here was in 1986, and the next time it will be here will be in 2061.
Oh.
However, I don't think I'll be here to see it.
Right, so that's 76 years. What's that? That's like a whole lifespan. Right?
Just about.
Or yeah.
Now, as for other comets, sometimes they just appear suddenly, not out of nowhere, but from one of those 2 places in our outer solar system, either from the Oort cloud or from the Kuiper belt.
Where are those areas? I've never heard of that. Is that another system?
The Kuiper belt is actually a circular, like a plate, that completely surrounds the solar system. Comet Halley, or Halley's Comet, comes from that area. And then there's another area called the Oort cloud that completely surrounds the solar system like a sphere, and it goes out to about 1 light year, which is about 6 trillion miles, and that's about a quarter of the distance to the next star, Proxima Centauri. So the solar system is quite large, and comets are pretty much the leftovers of the formation of the solar system, which occurred about 4.5 billion years ago.
And the Big Bang or whatever theory is still propelling them around?
Well, actually, it's simply the movement of our solar system within the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh, I see. So it's sort of an inertia thing.
Exactly. Constant motion going on.
Oh, that's interesting.
Everything is in motion.
Well, we got a little more time. I know Hale-Bopp. Is it Hale-Bopp?
Hale-Bopp, yes.
Hale-Bopp.
That's this comet here.
Have a picture of it.
Yes.
That was got quite a bit of press.
Yes. 1997. Actually, it was 2 astronomers, Alan Hale and Tom Bopp.
Oh, that's where the name comes from.
Yes. They had never met each other before, but Alan Hale was from Arizona. Tom Bopp was from New Mexico. Alan Hale is a professional astronomer. Tom Bopp is an amateur astronomer like me. And Alan Hale was by himself looking in the sky, and he observed a little fuzzball there, and he immediately reported it to the International Astronomical Union, which takes calls for those kinds of things. And then Tom Bopp was in New Mexico with a group of astronomers this particular evening, but he didn't even own a telescope. He was borrowing a telescope from one of the other astronomers. And he saw it about 15 minutes later, and
So amateurs really have a good chance of getting in on some of these bigger things. Then.
absolutely, most comet discoveries are made by amateurs.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow, that's quite a big push for someone to get into the hobby then.
Yes, absolutely.
Now Hellbot, was that named because it was a discovery, their discovery?
Yes, because both of them discovered it pretty much the same time. They both got credit for it.
Wow, and that's pretty much put your names in the astronomy books, huh?
Yes, I've met both of them in person a couple of times, and they both told me that their lives were changed forever.
Wow.
After the discovery was made.
Well, we can keep going on about this, my good friend Jim, but we're coming to the end of the show, so I want to thank Jim for coming in and for your great demonstration. We finally managed to get our heads together and get this show done, even on a rainy day. And so I want to thank you for coming all the way from Ventura.
Thank you.
This has been California Kaleidoscope. I'm Tony Genovese, and keep an eye out for us on your tube here, because we'll be running around in the community looking for interesting people to bring on the show. You can contact me through my email in the end credits and be on the show, and we'll talk about that. Thanks a lot, and thanks for the crew here in Van Nuys. Very good.